In a world where lasting love seems like a rare treasure, the sight of couples celebrating 40 or 50 years together fills my heart with a profound sense of joy. Their journey was not without its storms, for the ties that bind two souls are forged in the crucible of trials, the wisdom gained, and the daily choice to walk in love.
Sherrie and I began our marriage in the rough terrain of life, facing challenges mostly of our own making. Through those trials, we emerged with a deeper connection, a clear vision of the marriage that we want, and a shared commitment to help others navigate their own struggles.
May we remember that the roots of a strong relationship run deep, nurtured by shared experiences, unwavering commitment, and the willingness to walk together, hand in hand.
So I went to a party one night on New Year's Eve. My friend Ange invited me, was having it at her house up down Kellogg over by Dirty Ernie's. I had had a little bit too much to drink that night. Unfortunately, I met Jamie that night and he was too shy to come and talk to me. So he had a mutual friend of ours introduce us.
Do you want my impression on what happened?
Yeah. You tell your story about how we first met.
The day that I met Sherrie, I went up Evans Creek. It was during muzzleload season, and I killed a 5-point bull with a muzzleloader because there's nothing like packing out an elk when you're hungover. I heard that I think it might have been Les Huber, or somebody had said there was going to be a party in Kellogg. So my friend Scott and I went into Kellogg, and we went to these old white apartments, and I remember sitting downstairs, and oh my God, this hot little biscuit walked in, and it was Sherrie. She had long black hair, super good looking, and I just thought, you know what, I'd love to go hunting with that girl. So thank you, Carla Krulitz, because I boldly didn't have the guts to ask her to go out, and so Carla said something to Sherrie. And we ended up sitting down and visiting. And when she found out I had Queensryche tickets for Operation Mindcrime Tour, there's just no way she could say no to going out with me. That was the very first night we met.
That was our first meeting.
When we came here that night, we left. After I had saw you, we left and we went down to the gondola base. And I talked Scott into coming back. After I saw you, I wanted to go hunting with you. And so I talked Scott into coming back. And then that's when Carla introduced us. And I was so happy. He wanted to go get some sleep because he knew we had an elk to pack out the next day. And I'm so thankful that we stayed. And I probably had a few too many drinks, and I remember packing a 5-point bull out of the woods, sick to my stomach, which was not the funnest way to pack out meat, but I was glad that I'd met you.
First date, I was welding gas mains in Coeur d'Alene that day. Was absolutely soaking wet. And I remember laying a blanket in my truck. I had an old 69 Chevy pickup 2-wheel drive. It was snowing that day. And I didn't have time to take a shower when I got home. So I threw a blanket over the seat, went up to pick her up. And I don't know if she even recognized who I was, because we had talked, but we might have had too much to drink that night that we had met. So I picked her up, covered in mud, and take her out, put her in the truck, and then my stupid truck wouldn't start. So I had to throw it in neutral, push start my truck, get it rolling down the hill. I'm glad your apartment was on a hill. Rolled my truck down a hill, popped the clutch in third gear, and off we went to our first date. She probably was thinking, man, I have got a hold of a winner here. Yeah.
But little did he know that growing up in Kellogg, I was used to that kind of thing, so it didn't faze me at all.
Yeah.
The family that I was working for over in New Jersey, they wanted me to stay another year. They were wonderful to me, with me and my son, and they wanted me to stay another year and work, but I just really felt to come back. And there was a reason for that I had no idea. I mean, I did miss home, missed my family, But, I came back and wanted to try and start a life up here. And so, and then meeting Jamie just, 7, 8 months later, I didn't realize that my life was going to change at that point.
It wasn't very long after we were going out that you gave up your apartment
I
and you
did.
were moving back home with your folks. Let's just say her folks and I had a sort of rough start out. Her parents didn't really care for me at the beginning. Sherrie and I we're 8, 9 years apart.
Hmm.
When I met her, Michael was 11 months old. And so that was their first grandbaby. Just the dynamics with that caused some issues. And I
It
think
did.
your parents, especially your dad, he was chief of police at Kellogg at the time, super protective, he and Margie of you.
They were.
And
Yeah.
so that was pretty tough because we did not date for very long before we moved in together.
Hmm.
To the dismay of her parents, we were renting a house from my mom and dad in Coeur d'Alene, and my mom was not super jazzed about that. My mom and dad liked Sherrie a lot, but they did not approve of us moving in together.
No.
Yeah.
And that's true. My parents were very protective. And at the time, when you're young like that, you don't think about those things. But I understand now why. And I would probably have done the same exact thing my parents had done, especially since I had a child and they were worried about me and where my head was at. And we just kind of fell, head on, and we just got into this relationship pretty quickly. It developed pretty quick. While we wanted to be together and couldn't stay away from each other, then we had all these, you know, adult real life things that we needed to tackle. And I think neither one of us were at the maturity level to be able to tackle those things. I was learning how to be a mom at 19 years old, and Jamie had been living, a single life, and he was older than me. And so stepping into that, um, not thinking about the consequences, really things began to unravel over time as we started living together and getting to know one another.
I don't like being told what to do. That's kind of my personality. And I told her, well, you're not going to tell me who my friends are, even though half of them are girls. And, what a dope. I look back at myself now and go, what an idiot I was. We got an instant family. I was never around kids that much. So I'd never been through the teething and the ear infections and that kind of stuff. I'd never been through that. I was raised in a pretty strict disciplinarian family. So I've got an instant family now where I have a girlfriend who's not a wife. So I don't have that commitment there. She doesn't have the security with me that I'm fully vested in our future. How do you work through all that with
Mhm.
disciplining a kid and with our families involved? And we learned from an early, right out of the gate that you don't go ask your broke unmarried friends for marriage counsel. Oftentimes you can't go to your parents because you have soul ties with your parents. Who do you go to for help with that?
Right.
So and our friends just shook their head at us. We were in marriage counseling for 2 years before we even got married,
We were.
because it seemed like we loved each other. We couldn't stay away from each other. And yet we didn't know how to work through the issues that we were having, the
Mhm.
conflicts that we had. So we would fight, we would break up. I remember one time I kicked her out of the house,
Mhm.
but yet I couldn't stay away from her. And I look back now and go, okay, because I see relationships around us the same way.
Yeah.
They can't work through the challenges. They love each other, and then they live their life with a mediocre relationship, or they just get by instead of doing the work to make it an awesome relationship.
Right.
Why don't people do it? Well, it's real easy to judge, but I wasn't willing to do the work myself.
A lot of the reason people do not know how to do the work is because they don't have anybody to help them show them
Yeah.
the way. We started off on feelings and emotions and our relationship without giving thought to where that was going to, how that was going to end up. And so we kind of worked backwards in our relationship. Instead of starting a friendship, getting to know one another, we just jumped head on into a relationship. But we did. We loved each other, and we spent time together. And some of that time, Jamie was just super into hunting when I met him. And I always said, when I was in high school, because all the guys that I went to high school with hunted, I always said I wasn't going to marry anybody that hunted.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think
Little
God,
did
I
she
think
know.
I think God has a sense of humor. In order for me to spend time with Jamie, I kind of jumped into that, and I did learn to love it to a certain degree, not as much as he does. And we did have a lot of good memories going out and in the duck blind or elk hunting or whatever. And so I did learn to love that. But I think initially I did that just so I could spend time with him. And I think a lot of young girls do that. I see that, where they'll pick up what their boyfriend or whatever does because they want to spend time, but it's not necessarily who they are. And I didn't come to grips with that until much later, that that's not my first love. While I love the outdoors and doing all those things, hunting's not my first love, and that's okay. I'm my own person. I have my own interests and things that I love to do, but it's interesting, and when you're insecure in your younger days, I think you kind of mold yourself to the person that you're with.
I think because I grew up heavy and I was very insecure, hunting is who I was, not something that I did. And I think, well, Sherrie said something to me last year. It was very profound that I remember it. She said that oftentimes when people can't talk about if they're continually talking about their glory days of what they did back then or what we used to do, or they live in the past, it's because they have nothing set in for their future or that they're doing right now that as a new goal. That was profound when you said that, because I think back now going, okay, my identity was, okay, I killed a lot of elk, or I shot a lot of honkers, and then when I was selling cars, it was, hey, I sell a lot of cars. And then when I got into real estate, man, I sell a lot of houses and a lot of land, and that's my badge that I wore. My badge was hunting and fishing and outdoors because I was good at it. I love to spend, I'm kind of an introvert, so I still like to talk to people, but I like to do stuff by myself. So that was my badge, was I was a hunter, and I put that first, and then I put Sherrie second and Michael second in that. And that caused a lot of problems with us.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah. In those early days, we wonder how we even stayed together. And, I do believe the Lord had a plan. And we didn't know the Lord back then. We were both brought up in church and believed in God, but we just didn't have that personal relationship. But I do believe that those things that we went through, God has used today. And so I am thankful. I wouldn't want to go through some of those things that we did again. But there was a reason and a purpose behind that. I do believe that.
And that doesn't mean that, oh, the Lord, that all of a sudden everything's fixed.
No.
That was the beginning. That was our biggest challenges didn't even happen until we were born again.
Yeah.
Then the challenges happened. And honestly, when we get to it later, but our biggest challenges in our marriage didn't come until 10 years after we were married.
Right.
That was the hardest part that we ever had to go through.
We didn't feel the effects of that until much later in our marriage. There was a lot of things that happened early on in our relationship, without going into any gory details, that I
let's just say there was a direct correlation to the amount of alcohol consumed to how bad our fist fights got. Yes, right. I said fist fights. We won't go into any deep. If you want to talk about it, give us a call.
Yeah.
But there was a direct correlation between that, and we ended up having to quit drinking.
You don't think about that it's going to affect you years down the road, but it really does. And so, like, to Jamie's point, we had some challenges we had to face probably 10 years into our marriage, but it was because of the choices we made early on at the beginning. We chose to live together for 2 years, and we didn't do it right. And because of the choices we made, we kind of paid for that later and had to work through it later in our marriage, even after we were born again. You just don't think about that at the time. You think, well, you got past that, but really you don't, because a lot of times you bury certain things and emotions and things that happen, and you try to move on, but those are still under the rug and, until they're dealt with.
I look back now, and of course, when you're in a relationship and you're young and you're in your 20s and stuff, super selfish. It's all, I'm the center of the universe. It's all about my feelings and everything else. And I did not take into account how she felt. We're in a relationship where I'm out running around at the bars, not running around on her, but she doesn't know that. She just sees that I'm not at home, and she was 19, so she couldn't go out. And so I'm out every weekend, spending time and spending money on stupid stuff that I shouldn't be doing. How does that going to make you feel more secure? I'd go out, spend time away from her, which made her more insecure, which made her act out with me about your insecurity. And I'm looking like, what is this wrong with this crazy lady? I can't imagine why she's acting like that, which would make me want to get away more.
Right.
And who do you think? It was both of us working together to feed this big machine. We needed some help to get out of that. And that machine could be in your relationship. It could be in your finances. It could be in raising your kids. And oftentimes we get on this wheel and we don't know how to step off of it to
Right.
ask for help.
Right.
And maybe I wouldn't even have been open to help.
Yeah.
Maybe I was too prideful. I wouldn't even listen to anybody. Who knows?
And that very well was probably the case with both of us, I think. We were in counseling, but I don't think we were in the mindset or the maturity level to be able to apply the things. I think we were both pretty selfish on what we wanted.
I think so. And the
Yeah.
counseling was not God-based counseling.
Right.
It was just normal counselors. Our first marriage counselor was divorced. And I'm just going, oh, that's great. I used to work with a guy in construction. He was married. He was married 8 times. And is that who I'm going to take marriage advice off of?
Yeah.
The thing is, in a relationship, being a Christian doesn't mean you're perfect. And it doesn't mean that you have all the skill set. It just means you're forgiven, right? And the thing is, it doesn't matter. If you accept the Lord, that doesn't mean, oh, well, hey, the Lord's in my life. I'll just forget every single thing that you've ever done to me or that I've done to you. We'll just forget him. It doesn't work like that. You will never forget the things that you do to each other. So we ought to be more mindful of our mouths, because you can't
Right.
unsay things. Once you've said it, it's out on the table. But what it does mean is, with the Lord in your life, laying it at the cross, I'm going to start bawling, but
Okay.
you can forgive each other and move on from that. You don't forget, but you can forgive and move on. I think I should answer this because it's supposed to be my responsibility. When we decided to get married, I did not do it in a proper manly way. I was feeling pressure because the way I was raised, conservative, and I have one of my biggest pet peeves is men who don't take care of their families. I felt obligated that we should get married. That should not be the first thing that comes to mind if you're thinking about getting married, right? We'd been together for nearly 2.5, 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
Almost
Mhm.
3 years. And so I was just like, hey, what's up? Maybe we should get married. And I did not do a proper proposal, which I regretted ever since. And as a result, we're going to renew our vows here one of these days in the near future. But I promised I would sing a song for her, and so I'm still afraid to sing in front of people. So, but I'm working on that.
The sad part about that is it took away from what should have been a working towards that, like a special time. It kind of took away from that because we were already living together. So we just said, hey, let's just get married. We went and picked out a ring. And so it kind of took away from the specialness of, having a proposal and doing that. And honestly, because we skipped the part where we just got to know one another on a friend level and all of that. That's one thing I regret about that I wish we would have done different is not live together.
The whole experience was more of a burden than it was a big happy thing to look forward to,
Mhm.
because we didn't do it in the right way.
Right.
When you get together with somebody, obviously I've made a lot of dumb decisions and some good ones. And before I met Sherrie, she made a lot of good ones and some dumb ones. And then when we get together, we make some dumb decisions together.
Yeah.
And then even something like that, the insecurities because of no commitment on my end, so here we are, we got a brand new baby, Michael's 11 months old. I've got an instant family. I've never been around that. She doesn't have the security of having a husband.
Mhm.
She's got a boyfriend that could throw a fit, or and we could break up at any time because we don't have that commitment. And then we wonder why we're having hard times. We worked through those things years later. So even why we were together before we got married, making poor decisions, it took us years to clean that up. So I'd encourage you, if you're working through some stuff like that, get some help. It does
Mhm.
not get better on its own by sweeping it under the carpet. And we started. It took us years, but we finally started making better decisions,
Yeah.
and making decisions as a couple. What is it that Sherrie wants? What is it that Jamie wants? And where do we meet somewhere in the middle that's
Mhm.
good for our future? We didn't spend any time doing that.
Right.
One of the biggest things that I've learned is going, get to the root of the challenges, fix them
Mhm.
quick, don't wait. And if you really care for somebody, I was just talking to a client this morning. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for a long, long time. He was talking about, yeah, I dated this gal for 7 years. Well, you dated her for 7 years. I can't imagine spending 7 years together. Is not marriage material, or what's going on?
Mhm.
Or are we afraid of commitment? Or what is it that we're going through
Right.
that somebody's good enough and I care enough about him to spend 7 years, but I don't care enough about him to make that final commitment?
Mhm.
That's just weird to me. But that's what the world would teach. My cousin Dean said to me, he goes, "Why would you spend time dating somebody if you could never see yourself married to them?" That was a wise thing, and it did change my life, because if you couldn't see yourself living your whole life with somebody as a great partner, then why would you even bother spending time to get to know them even more? I
Mhm.
mean, if you get to a point where somebody's driving you crazy, cut it loose and go find whoever the Lord would have for you,
Right.
you know?
One of the things we've learned along the way is we need to be each other's cheerleader
Yeah.
and support system. And you know, it's not about what Jamie loves. It's not about what I love. Even though we both have different interests, it's about our life together and
Yeah.
what are our goals together and moving forward as a team. And so that's something that has taken us a while to get to. I wish we would have learned that early on in our marriage,
Yeah.
but I feel like we've gotten there
Yeah.
to that point.
It's sad for me when I run into people that have a average or a mediocre relationship, because I believe that people can have so much more. And I think
Mhm.
maybe it took me a while to figure out that I deserved it, actually, or that we deserved
Yeah.
it. It's hard to find in the world today, good role models for that kind of stuff.
I know.
You know what I mean? Without selfishness. I'm not saying that I don't want certain things. I mean, it's not Sherry's dream to have an 18-foot, supercharged big block airboat, Canadian airboat. That's not her
But I
dream.
like to go for a ride.
Yeah, you'd take you for a ride in it. It's taken us a long time to learn how to be unselfish and to
Mhm.
encourage, to encourage our spouses in the things that they want. I'm just, it's just thinking, we sold some property, and we got to go upgrade Sherry's ring, and that made me feel good to be able to
Mhm.
go buy a new ring with her, and it was as much as a brand new side by side. And I don't want a side by side. I'd rather have the ring. Of course, that ring won't pack an elk out of the woods. But that made me feel good as a husband to be able to go do that.
Mhm.
I'm thankful that we have learned to take our eyes off ourselves,
Yeah.
and not be so selfish. And what I realize is the more giving that I am, the more giving she is.
Mhm. I think the things that we've gone through have definitely bonded us, because we didn't want to settle. I think we didn't want to settle. We wanted to have a better relationship, and it took a while to get to that headspace and that point. But now, I went to work with Jamie. I guess it's been about 7 years ago, and I feel like even this step in coming to work with him has bonded us even more. We have a lot of things that we're working towards as a team. And like I said, I wish we would have had that in our early days, but it's okay because this is our story and this is how we got here. And we're definitely don't have a perfect marriage, but we have a pretty good marriage, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And we'll continue to work on our marriage and, you know,
Yeah.
as we move forward. I'm very thankful for what we've overcome in our marriage and what we've worked through. And I'm thankful that I have my best friend beside me
Amen.
to
Me
continue
too.
moving forward.
We met a gal over at our pastor's house, and And she looked at us and she's like, "What's your next adventure? Here's a tip if you might need some help. If your next adventure doesn't include your spouse, might have a problem. But if our adventures don't include something together, then what are we doing it for?"
Exactly. And we've just come to that point. It's like if we're gonna spend our life with somebody, our partner should be our best friend. And
Yeah.
we feel that way about each other now. I'm so thankful for that. And we laugh together and we like, trying new things and new adventures. And I think that's part of keeping the relationship going and keeping things fresh. And
If you come to our office, you're going to hear some banter between her and I, where we tease each other all day, and we don't do it when Sherry's hungry or she's tired. That we've learned over time. But we do like to banter,
We
and
do.
we joke around a lot. I think we got a great relationship, and it's funny because sometimes in in the past, some of our friends have thought that especially Sherry appears have driven snow, and they were uncomfortable like sharing stuff with us sometimes
Mhm.
because they think that, oh my gosh, that we had achieved something, which we don't look at ourselves like that at all.
No.
We love to help people,
No.
but it couldn't be further from the truth of the mess that we started with the Lord's help. How far have we come
Mhm.
through there, and
Yeah.
what have we built? But it took some time and it took some effort, and I'm so thankful. It was absolutely worth it. And I would encourage anybody else that if you're going through stuff, get some help,
Yeah.
and don't settle for anything less than awesome.
I agree.
Amen.
Amen.